Today's tutorial is for the 10th Sewing Marathon with the Marathon Society. Today we are featuring the artist Tara from UhOh Creations, and we will all be making our own versions of her Louie Waist Bag. This pattern has become very popular. There are many tutorials on it. I am just simply going to go with the fun, easy, basic route. I'm not doing anything different to mine. This is actually the first time I'll be sewing this up. I bought this pattern immediately when it was released and still haven't sewn it. So I am so excited to be sewing it up today. As always, I'll have a link for the pattern and the materials that I'm using in my description, but let's go ahead and go over the materials. I won't be telling you each individual piece ahead of time, but I will tell you as we sew it up. Today for the materials, I'll be using Wizardry sewing string. This is Strawberry Shortcake. I'll be using all materials from the Emporium, that is from Brittany. I will be using zipper tape from Mormino. My tag is from Heartwood and Hide. My webbing is from the Emporium also. I'll be using a little bit of ribbon for binding. This bag is half bound, half birthed. And then I will have 3 zipper pulls and a side release buckle. All of my materials are cotton woven, so I did follow the designer's directions for interfacing. I only have a layer of SF101 on all the pieces except for the front main panel, and I did put 2 layers of SF101 on that. Very simple. This will be a soft smushy bag, which is exactly what I like in a waist bag because I like to be able to wash them because I use them quite frequently. Now that I've talked to you about everything I'm using, let's go ahead and start sewing up this bag. Before we get this pattern started, I'll just give a little disclaimer. If this is the first time watching one of my videos, my marathon videos are not like my regular videos. I do tend to have a little more fun, be a little more chatty in these marathon videos, so just note that my regular tutorials will be a little more normal and just focus on the sewing. To get this pattern started, what we are going to do is work on that back pocket first. So I have a back bottom, both exterior and lining. Then I have just the back lining part. Then I have a top back piece, I have my zipper and 1 pull. My zipper is quite a bit longer than it needs to be. I always do that, just makes it easier, and that way I can leave the pull off and put it on easily after it's sewn together. We are going to start by using these 2 back bottom pieces. My exterior, of course, has the tag on it, so we will work with the lining first by putting it right sides up. We will put the zipper tape on top of it right sides up, matching up that top long edge, and we're just going to baste that into place. Tara is one of my favorite pattern designers. I found her very early in my sewing journey. She is one of the first people who allowed me to create a YouTube tutorial for one of their patterns. I chose the Owen organizer, and it is still one of my best videos on my channel. It's a free pattern, one of my favorites. Tara and I have joked that I have made that pattern more than she has at this point. Now that we have that zipper basted in place, what we'll do is we will pull out that exterior piece and we will just flip it and place it right sides down, matching up that top edge. This time we'll come in with that full seam allowance and sew across here. When I first purchased this machine, I knew immediately that the first pattern I wanted to sew on it was one of Tara's. And so that was the first bag I ever completed on this machine, was a Tara pattern, was an UhOh Creation pattern. And I told myself then that that would also be the last bag that I sew on this machine. I need to create a tutorial for it. I don't even have one for it. Now that we have these sewn right sides together, you're just going to do the typical thing to flip them wrong sides together and top stitch across the top. We have this part completed. Let me show you how it looks from the back as well. You can see that's the lining. Now what we're going to do is pull out that back lining piece, have it facing right sides up, and go ahead and place your pocket that you just was working on top of that, so that you can match up this top edge. We're going to sew along that top edge to attach the zipper to that other lining piece. And I'm just going to base this in place with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This style of bag, a waist bag, is shown throughout all cultures throughout the ages. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics actually show men wearing these bags on belts. The ancient Romans wore these because, of course, the toga did not have a pocket. Same with kimonos and kilts. And so the waist bag became a really easy way to carry things that they needed, such as coins or tools. Native Americans would also bead buffalo skins to use to carry their essentials as well. Now that we have this bottom part done, the lining attached to the top of the zipper, the last thing we needed to do before we add our zipper pull is to add the top piece. So what we'll do with this top is have it orientated the way you want it to look at the end. The correction, if yours is a directional print, have it going the right way. And then just flip it down. And this time you'll sew along that top edge using the full seam allowance given in the pattern. The term bum bag was actually coined by the British. In America, it was always kind of known as a fanny pack. A lot of people, though, refer to it now as a waist bag. And although the traditional style was to be worn above the butt, today it can be worn that way or also across the chest, kind of as an anti-theft type of style of wearing. Before pockets became very popular, bags were more popular in carrying around everything that was needed. I'm just pushing this top band up. You can see my seam is staying up as well. I'm not lifting up that lining pocket on the back, of course. So your seam stays up and you just press this top band up. Go ahead and top stitch it the same like you did on the last part with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. In the late 1980s, the waist bag became very popular. It became really popular really quick, along with the invention of nylon as used for use in clothing. Because it became popular so quick, it also fell really quick from popularity as kind of a fad. But people still were using them because they were so practical. It just had to be redesigned, and instead of being used as a fad, just more as a productive way to carry your items. This is how that back pocket looks. I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to attach my pull and trim up my zipper tape, and then we will go on to the next step. So now we have this back pocket completed. Let's go ahead and pull out one of our lining main panel pieces. I'm going to be using this one. I do have a Marathon Society tag from Heartwood and Hyde already attached. So the first thing you'll do is you'll take your lining main panel piece, place it right sides down, and then you will set this completed back pocket on top of it. I'll flip it over so I can center it and make sure I have it kind of lined up nicely. And I know I'll have to do some trimming. I'm actually going to sew it from this side, even though the zipper's a little bit bulky, but that will help me get the best sew. And then I will just trim it after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste this around just to get it attached, and then we'll trim all around those edges. So we know that this can be called a waist bag, a bum bag, but a couple other names for this will be a waist wallet, a belt bag, a belly bag, a chaos pouch, which is my new favorite way to say it, a buffalo pouch, also a hip sack, a butt pack, and a moon bag. Now, I'm assuming the moon bag phrase was given due to certain acts that people may do with their bum. I don't know. The year 1991 was an important year for the waist pack. What happened in that year was not only that the nylon atrocity, as some like to say, finally lost its popularity from the 80s and people were no longer using it in the fashion world as much, but also they made a discovery. in the mountains along the Italian-Austrian border, a pair of German tourists stumbled upon a body. It was a frozen corpse. People assumed that it was just a hiker that had met an ill fate, and they were going along with that assumption, but they were wrong. This was not a tourist that had frozen or a hiker. This was actually a mummy that had laid there for 5,000 years. What was so interesting about this was that 5,000-year-old mummy actually was wearing a waist bag, was a calf skin that included things like tinder fungus and a boning tool. Never leave home without your tinder fungus. Now that I have this attached, I'm going to trim around here, and then my back pocket is complete. We will set this part aside and start working on the front. So now we're going to start working on this zipper gusset piece. This is the main zipper. It's going to go all around the front of the bag, and it'll be the main enclosure. We only have 2 zipper gusset pieces, 1 exterior and 1 lining, 2 base pieces, 1 exterior and 1 lining. I'm using 2 zipper pulls, and then I have 4 of the flange pieces that are cut mirrored. The pattern tells you exactly what size to cut the zipper. I'm doing the medium, so I have my zipper cut to those exact measurements. Do make note that if you're using the small or the medium, there is different sizes, of course, that you should cut the zipper. I'm going to leave my zipper pulls off until I get ready to add the base, just for a little bit of ease, but it's not too big of a deal. You could put them on now if you're afraid you'll forget, but I want to take the time before we start sewing to just go over a little bit with this flange piece. So I don't know how well you can see, but I do have a dot that I transferred over from the pattern piece. This pattern gives us pattern pieces for everything. You do not have to cut and measure any pieces out. This long straight side is the side that will attach to the zipper. This is the part that will attach to the main panel. What we are going to do is we are going to be sewing. You can baste it on first if you want, but then when you do your main seam allowance, you will be sewing all along here, and then when you get to this spot, your needle will be down in that dot that you made, and then you will pull your zipper until it is in line with this point here. The reason I'm kind of going over this now is because it will be a little hard to see on my machine, but you will pull the zipper so that the straight edge of the zipper will be in line with that point. So let's go ahead and get everything prepped and sew this up. I just want to take a few minutes to explain that so that you can kind of have that little bit better of a visual. So what I want to do is I want to take that long straight edge and I'm going to put it in line with the zipper. And now I'm going to go ahead and just baste this in place. This basting is an unnecessary step. You do not have to do it. You can do the traditional way where you have the lining and the exterior right sides together and then sew it all at once. But right now I'm going to baste my exterior onto my zipper. So my zipper is right sides up, my exterior is right sides down. Just going to baste along that straight edge. And that just has one thing out of the way that I don't have to worry about. So since there's going to be a little bit of twisting and pulling, I already know I have one completely attached. I'm going to take this zipper, I'm going to flip it over, and I want to take the lining piece, and like I said, these have to be mirrored, so you want to make sure you have them cut out the right way. The pattern piece tells us that. And you're going to line it up so that this lining piece, the right side is against the wrong side of the zipper, but it's right sides together with your exterior. Let's go ahead and baste this in place too, just to make for sure we have everything kind of stabilized before we're doing that final step. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with that full seam allowance. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to back stitch, and I'm going to keep sewing. When I get to where that dot is, you are going to see me pull my zipper. So I'm pulling it and angling it until the zipper edge, this straight edge, is in line with that point. So I'm going to put my needle down and pull now. And now I will continue sewing. I'm going to back stitch there at the top. to have just that slight curve. It's not going to be very noticeable, but whenever we flip it, it just gives it that slight ability to curve over. Let's go ahead and pull these two pieces apart and top stitch. I'm top stitching 1/8 of an inch away, and I'm kind of helping to pull and keep everything in line while I'm doing that. This is the way the flange looks. You can just see it has just that soft, really kind of gentle way it's wanting to curve, so that is the perfect way to do it. We're going to do this same thing on this side of the zipper. Make sure you have it on the same side. It doesn't go down here, it doesn't go over here, it goes on the same side. I will do those off camera, and then when we come back, we'll do the rest of the steps. I have both of the flanges sewn on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and attach the zipper gusset. The zipper gusset goes on the side that does not have the flange. The flange will go against that main panel piece. I'm going to have the gusset lining piece right sides up, and then I'm going to place the zipper on top of it right sides up, matching up the edge that does not have the flange, and we're just going to base this in place. If you cut your zipper to the measurements that the pattern designer gives us, it should fit pretty perfectly all along that edge. I'm just basting 1/8 of an inch away. Now that most of the people that might have just popped on this video because they saw it because of the thumbnail or anything like that and probably got bored with me and are gone, we will start giving out the good random facts. I wanted to ease everyone into it, you know, just give the boring ones out first. Since we're talking all about the bum bag, did you know that sea cucumbers and certain turtles breathe through their butts? Now, if you Google this, you're going to learn a lot of random facts. I'm not going to say them in my video, but it's pretty interesting. Having a big butt can also help with your posture. And a 2007 survey actually linked big butts to intelligence. The study said that people with a greater hip to waist ratio had higher IQs than less curvy women, and those women's children also had a higher IQ, which kind of leads us to believe that the fat stored around the butt and the thighs is high in omega-3 acids, which helps a baby's developing brain. Now that we have that lining basted in place, go ahead and pull out your exterior piece. Now you want to make sure you orientate the way you want this to go. I actually want mine in the end, let's see, this will go around the front. I actually want mine to be orientated this way, so I think it'll look better this way because it'll be going down to the other side. So I have mine upside down. I'm going to flip it right sides together with that zipper tape, and now I'm going to sew these 3 pieces together with that full seam allowance given in the pattern. There is a horsefly that is actually named Beyonce due to certain characteristics that it shares with her physique. In 2013, that is the year that twerking was defined as a dance or dance move that involved thrusting hip movements and a low squatting stance. It was actually added to the Oxford English Dictionary. In 2014, we saw almost a 15% increase in butt lifts. There is a thing known as a butt selfie, and it is called a belfie. Let's go ahead, now that we have these sewn together, and pull these 2 zipper gussets wrong sides together. And then I'm just going to top stitch down that folded edge that we just sewn, just an 1/8 of an inch away. After I do this top stitching, I'm going to go off camera and go ahead and add both of my zipper pulls before we add the base. I tried to find a random fact about how many songs are written about butts, but I couldn't. There's so many, and there's so many. You can, though, actually go online and Google the top 25 songs about butts. So not only is there way too many songs about butts, that they actually have enough to rank them in the top 25. I went ahead and added 2 zipper pulls to the zipper, and I also basted down the sides and across the bottom just to help a little bit with the ease for the next step. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the base to complete the gusset. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this short edge and I'm going to line it up with this short edge of the zipper panel, placing them right sides together. So my exterior is right sides together with the zipper panel piece. I'm going to add a clip or 2 in place here, flip it over, do the same thing with the lining piece. So the lining piece will be right sides together with the lining pieces and also right sides together with the exterior base piece. Just your traditional zipper sandwich. Jennifer Lopez actually insured her butt for $27 million. Now that we have those 2 pieces sewn together, let's flip them so that they are wrong sides together, and then we're just going to top stitch down this seam. 10% of people who get butt implants are men. Now that we have that top stitch, we are going to take this short side of the exterior and pull it around to match it up with the other side of those zipper panels. Again, the exterior for the zipper panels and the exterior for the base are right sides together. You could baste right here if you're a little nervous, but I'm just going to go ahead and pull this around. Some people roll this up as a burrito style. I don't. I just kind of push it out of the way. As long as I know that I'm getting lining to lining right sides together, I don't worry about the rest of it. Flip that in place, and let's go ahead and sew this with the full seam allowance also given in the pattern. As you might imagine, there are lots of world records involving butts. Of course, there's one for the biggest butt, but there's also records involving the most butt skips in a minute, most hazelnuts cracked with a butt in 10 seconds. I'm just putting these wrong sides together. My first row of top stitching on my previous side didn't look good, so I took that out. So you're actually going to see me top stitch, baste, all around this gusset. Like I was saying about the world records for butts, there's also one for the longest time kicking one's own butt. The most balloons popped by your butt in 30 seconds. Most butt traps with a soccer ball in 1 minute. I don't even know what that is, but I'm sure if anyone plays soccer on here, they would know. Most butt bounces on a bed. Most butts slapped in 2 minutes. And this could be anybody's, not just your own, just random people. I guess they line up for that event. I don't know. I'm sure it's a very festive occasion. And of course, we have to have a world record for the longest time twerking upside down while wearing a sombrero on your butt. Now that we have this gusset completed, we're going to set it aside. So at this point, we have our gusset and our back completed. We are going to be working on our webbing connectors next, and then we will move on to the last few pieces and put this all together. So I have 2 different cuts of webbing. That is what the pattern calls for. One shorter, one of course is longer. We have these strap connectors. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is the piece. What we do is we fold this in half, and then on this curved edge, this is where the overhang is going to be. The pattern tells us about how much overhang you're going to have. So you can see my curved edges have that small amount of overhang. This is to provide stability for these connectors. We are not going to trim that off. We're going to flip this over after we sew it, and it's actually going to help provide a little bit more security so that these don't rip out. If you have ever had one of these rip out, you really appreciate having that little bit of support on there. So make sure your curved edge is closer to your little bit of overhang. This long straight edge, you can't tell it so much here, but it is with the rest of the strap. You can tell it better with the longer one, that's where that straight edge goes. Now we are just going to sew down this curved edge here. So we'll start here at the top on both of these, back stitch, and then go around this down to this point. That way we can flip it back and then top stitch. So I'm going to do both of these stitches on camera to show you how we do that. You're going to be using the full seam allowance on these pieces. Now that you have those sewn, you're just going to pull it back. If you need to trim up any, you can. That's a personal preference. If you feel like it's adding too much bulk and you can't get a nice curve, you will of course have to trim like what they call it a dog ear. I don't know, it's a quilting term. But now what you'll do is you'll just kind of sew and baste this into place. So now what you're going to do, now that you have it pulled, is you're just going to top stitch around here, and I'm going to go ahead and baste this close, and then I'll trim up that extra there. Making sure I have everything looking nice. If you need to poke out any of your curves or if you need to trim anything, go ahead and do that. This would also be a good place right here with the webbing to put a rivet if you want for a little more extra security. You can also sew 2 rows of stitching, which is what I'm going to do. So this first row of stitching is about 1/8 of an inch away from the edges we just sewed. Then I'm going to come back in 1/8 of an inch away from the edge I just sewed of top stitching. So I'm going to turn right there, pivot, and just go ahead and do another row of stitching again. Just kind of help secure everything. It'll look nice too. You of course will need to do that extra row of stitching along the basting edge. So let's just trim that extra off so you can see clearly how this looks. This is your first piece right here. I'm going to do those same steps on that second one to get it completed, and that has the webbing prepped for this step, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we do with the rest of it. Before we add these pieces to the back of the bag, we are going to do one more step. The pattern designer refers to this piece as the strap anchor. So your shorter piece is the anchor. Go ahead and just thread on the female portion of the side release buckle, and then you're going to pull it all the way to the side of the front. This is the front of it. You can see my top matches up and I have it matched here. If you wanted to use the D-ring, you would slide that on and then sew a box so that it would be kind of anchored in here. I'm not using the D-ring. The purpose of the D-ring is if you want to clip on keys, sanitizer, anything like that. I don't need that personally, and this is what I'm using for myself. If I was making these as gifts or to sell, definitely would do that. But for mine, I won't. And so I'm just going to sew around a box around here. You could do 2 rows of stitches, you could do the X, you could put rivets, whatever you want to secure this. But I'm just going to secure this piece of webbing back on itself on the front. So my random facts for this video have been slightly, I don't know, risque, inappropriate, not as fun, whatever you want to call it. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to be going over the cutest, sweetest, random facts that I can find. Sea otters hold hands with each other while they're sleeping. Cows have best friends, and they actually show signs of less stress when they're with their best friends. I'm going to go ahead and sew a second row of stitching around here just to help it be secure. The voices of the people who originally voiced Minnie and Mickey Mouse eventually got married in real life. Gentoo penguins propose to their mates with a pebble. If the female penguin accepts the proposal, she then uses that pebble to start building their nest. Now that I have this attached on here, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the back. I've already added the other side to the back. I haven't done anything to the other end of this. I'll wait to the very end after we turn the bag and everything to do that. But for this piece, the pattern tells us how far down. We're just going to put those raw edges together with the measurement that the pattern gave us, and then we'll just baste this in place along here. So you can see my diagonals going down, the straight edges against here. Both of the straps are towards the inside. This is on the back piece. Puffins mate for life. They also build their home together and take turns sitting on their eggs until their babies hatch. Okay, so now that we have this back completed, we're going to set it aside until we need it later. We're going to pull out the gusset. I went ahead and marked the center marks on my gusset. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my front exterior too. I marked the centers on the front exterior, and I also used the pattern piece to make the marks for the gussets. What we're going to do is we're going to start putting this right sides together, making sure we take the time to match up all the marks that are given to us. I'm going to attach the zipper edge, not the gusset edge, but the zipper edge to the front exterior. So I want to place them right sides together. And first thing I'll do is I'll match up the center marks at the top. And I like to make a few clips all along here so that it kind of is stable a little bit before we go down to another section. I come down to the bottom to attach the bottom edge of this gusset base piece. Add a few clips there as well. And the pattern also gives us a mark for the gusset. So where this gusset ends right here, you can make that mark match with the measurement given in the pattern or the placement given in the pattern. And this is just one more way to ensure that you have everything evenly spaced and the material is properly distributed throughout this edge of the exterior main. Continue to clip all the way around. I'm going to clip the rest of this off camera and then we will come back to sew it together. I have that gusset clipped right sides together with my exterior. Just as a reminder, the zipper tape is what we're sewing on. I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch around, just do a basting stitch real quick. If you are an excellent sewer, you don't need to do that. Go ahead and sew with the full seam allowance. But I'm someone that I struggle a little bit and I want to try to get these curves to look as nice as possible. I'm going to have my hemostat and my stiletto handy in case I need to with any slipping. But honestly, the gusset fits beautifully. But I'm going to go around, go slow. After I get this basting step done, then I will come back in with that full seam allowance just to make for sure I have it accurately sewn around the curves. Vikings give kittens as gifts at weddings per Nordic tradition. Goats have accents just like humans do. I'm going to use my hemostats to pull this. It's kind of pulling a little and I don't want to lose that curve. I don't snip into my zipper. I just pull and kind of try to work it out that way. I'm too uncomfortable snipping on zippers. I do know they fray easily. Honeybees also hold hands. Their hands are more like hooks, but they tend to do that with each other while they are sleeping. In Switzerland, it is illegal to own only one guinea pig because they are social creatures. They have made it a law that they have to be at least in pairs of 2. There is an island in Japan that is filled with only rabbits. Ducks shake their tails whenever they're happy. They tend to do it mostly whenever they're eating or swimming. I did lose just a little bit, not even 1/4 of an inch on these bottom curves. I'm going to let that go. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go off camera and do the other full seam allowance. So this was just the basting stitch, so I'll come in and do that. I just won't waste your time by doing that. And I really don't know how long this video is getting with all my random facts. So I will come back after I do that and then I'll show you how we're adding the lining to this piece. I have this gusset sewn on with the full seam allowance. Now it's time to add the very last lining piece we have. What we're going to do is we're going to have this main exterior piece right sides up, so we're looking at the right side. We're going to take that last lining piece and place it right sides down. Now we're going to clip all the way around, matching all the same marks, the center marks and the side marks for the gusset that's on the pattern piece. We're going to clip everything around. The gusset is going to be inside here. So we are clipping to this top edge of the zipper that we just sewed and this bottom edge that we just sewed. We will not be seeing this gusset at all. All that extra will be stuck in there. So this will kind of be a little fluffy pillow. We're going to sew, but we're going to leave the opening here at the bottom so we can birth it out. You could bind this if you wanted to, but the reason why you don't want to bind is you're going to have that bulky binding here at the seam of the zipper, and it's just going to lay a little differently. This way, the pattern designer ensures that we get a really nice opening on the zipper. So it's the best of both worlds, honestly. I'm going to go off camera and clip these two pieces together. When I come back, I'll show you how it looks, and then we'll sew it. I have everything clipped together. Let's look at it from both sides. You can see here's my previous basting stitch. There's the real stitch. That's from the exterior. Here's the lining. The gusset is inside there. We can't see any of it. So I'm going to start sewing here at the bottom, and I'm going to backstitch really well, go all the way around, then backstitch here, and that way I can turn it through the opening. I'm using a lot of pressure here on these curves to push down that zipper to make sure it's not getting any bumps or wrinkles, in hopes that I'm getting it nice and neat. I'm also trying to sew right up against the zipper teeth to prevent any kind of zipper like waviness or anything at the end. If you wanted to, you could also sew from the other side so that you can see your stitching. But on this way, when I'm sewing this way, I can feel that zipper tape. I feel a little bit better. Okay, so here's how it looks. Turned out, it looks so good. I love it already. I'm going to come here to this opening, and I'm actually, you can use some double-sided tape if you want, but I'm just going to use some glue and kind of glue that down. What I want to do is I want to glue it so that this folded edge is right where my stitches are. It's just covering those stitches that we basted with, so I can't see those, but when I come around here, I can feel it's even with this, so when I top stitch here, it'll still catch it. So I'm going to do that. I am going to risk top stitching. If I'm top stitching and it looks horrible, then I will stop and I will just let it go, and I'll just kind of hand baste this piece in place just to close up that gap. But I'm going to attempt the top stitching. Okay, I have this part glued down on the inside. Let's try to top stitch. I'm just going to go 1/8 of an inch all the way around this exterior. I'm going to go really slow. I'll speed up the camera so you're not waiting the whole time. And whenever I'm coming to these curves, I'm going to kind of poke everything out and go for the best. Oh my gosh, I love that. Top stitching went great. Highly recommend the top stitching. Just go slow and kind of apply some pressure, like kind of really make sure that you're not getting anything too loose around the curves so that it's a nice smoother curve. I mean, like you can still see a little bit of wrinkling right there, but nothing too big. So great job. Love it, love it. Got the back caught as well. We're ready to move on to the next steps. I'm going to trim down my threads, just the leftover threads I have, so I'm going to trim those down, and then we're going to move on to the back. All I have left are these two pieces. I'm ready to put everything together and finish. Now the back of the bag is going to be finished with binding. I love this concept. I have sewn a lot of bags where the designers want to do it all birthed, and it becomes really challenging. So this way, we still have this really nice smooth front around the zipper, which is really important with the opening and closing. But now we can bind the back with this gusset and not have any problems. It's going to be a much easier sew. I'm looking at the exterior of my bag. You can see the right side of my zipper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to match up the seams just the same way I did with the front. Match up the center marks, then match up the marks that are given on the pattern piece with the side of the gusset. Then we are going to sew all the way around. I'm going to baste first, that's the way I always do it, and then I'm going to come in with binding. I'm using ribbon for my binding. It's just an easy way to do it because I just fold it over, but it's still really thin and flexible, so it doesn't really create a really hard like seam there, as sometimes I have happen with waterproof canvas. So this is the way I'm binding mine. I'm not going to show those steps on camera because it's the same thing, just sewing around a couple times to get it all done. I will go ahead and sew this all together, turn it right sides out, and then we'll come back to talk about the bag and just to add the strap there on the end, the buckle on the end, to have that finished, and we'll just look at how beautiful this bag is. I am so in love with this pattern. This is my new favorite. I can see why everybody loves it. It is so cute, and I love the way it comes together, and I just love the shape of it. Really, really good design. I have not finished the strap on the back, so let's just look at everything, and then the strap on the back, or the buckle, will be the last thing I do. But we've got to look inside at how gorgeous this looks. I love how open that is. I mean, that's amazing. Really love the way she's figured this out. Perfect, perfect design. This is the back. Have that really nice zipper pocket. So not only do I have all the room in there, the zipper pockets are really nice size also. Definitely could hold one of your smaller wallets in there. This may become my new favorite. This is great. So let's talk just a little bit about the strap. So this is what I'm using for mine. I'm using the male portion of that side release, and I'm using an adjustable bar. You do not have to use this. She does give you the instructions of how to make kind of like a strap minder, a strap holder, everything like that. So let's take this apart and just walk through it. So the first thing you do is you just slide on this adjustable bar on the edge. You just put it on, push it up there. Then you slide on the male portion of that side release buckle. And I just have it going through the top. Then I will come back around, take that free edge and go through the bottom. Get that slit on there. And this may not be the proper way to do it, but this is the way I'm doing it. Then I make a little loop here so that I can fit that free edge back up and under that adjustable bar. And then I'll be able to tack this down so that it won't be just kind of loose and free flowing, which is fine if you like it that way. It's just I don't prefer it that way. I take the free edge, let me get that a little bit smaller there. I don't want to lose too much of my webbing. And I just fold it under twice. And then I attach it to that underside. You can see the loop there. That's where it's attached to. I always test it out to make sure everything will work. So I can adjust it freely there. I can move this down if I have extra room there. That's how it'll work. The only thing I have to do then is I just have to sew this one place. And I will sew 2 rows of stitching. If you prefer rivets, add some rivets there, but you would just sew the one piece. You won't sew this piece. So that's how we finish it. Just want to show that. I'll do the sewing off camera. So here is my Louie Waist Bag. This pattern is from UhOh Creations. My materials, the fabric and the webbing, are both from the Emporium. Zipper tape is from Mormino. This pattern is awesome. I would not call it a beginner pattern. I would call it intermediate, but I feel like it is 100% doable by a beginner. And I think you will love so much the process of making it too. I think it's super fun. I'm sad I waited this long. I'm like the last one to have made it, but it's a great pattern. And I know I'll definitely be making more of these. So much fun. So thanks again for watching another one of our sewing marathons. Just as a reminder, this is not how my usual videos go. I don't usually give random facts and I'm not as chatty. But thanks so much for watching. I hope you watch all the others too. We really appreciate the community and connection during these videos. And I hope today in your sewing room that you try out a new pattern that you bought originally to sew up immediately and just never got around to doing it. And I hope you fall in love with it. And I also hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching.